Hello everyone, welcome to part 4 of this mini series about corporate level strategies, and I'm just going to talk in this video about some other strategies or other techniques that I want you to be aware of. Number one is internal new venturing. Now, internal new venturing is the transferring of resources and creating new business units in a new industry to innovate new kinds of product. And basically that means we use this in companies that are technologically based and are pursuing a related diversification, but also venturing to enter newly emerging industries. So, but there's a couple of pitfalls here. Basically, this is when inside the business you create a business, all right? And there's a couple of pitfalls here. Number one is that a lot of times the market entry on is too small of a scale because the product really does not have enough clients, let's say, or poor commercialization of the new ventured product as well can be a pitfall, or poor corporate management of this new venture division. And a lot of times, to be honest, this third one is the main reason why they fail. So the thing is, when we use internal new venturing, basically there's a couple of possibilities here. You can have a more smaller scale entry or a larger scale entry. Obviously, this will, if it works out, the profitability will recover relatively better. But here's the thing, actually going a little bit smaller might be a good idea if you want to recover your profit as quickly as possible. If you want to try to generate highest profits possible, then going for a more large scale entry may make more sense, because even though it takes a larger amount of time to actually recover the money, but the profits at the end will be much larger. So some guidelines for creating a successful internal new venturing. Number one, understanding and basing new ventures on R&D. So especially if you're dealing in very competitive industries, it's very important to focus on research and development to really create new things that might be a fit for the customer needs. Giving funding for research to business unit managers who can narrow down and then select the best set of research topics. So actually giving money to managers, that understand the customers and understand what are the things that can be that should be researched to generate the highest amount of value possible for our end customer. So working as well with R&D scientists to continuously improve, to develop and improve the business model and strategies. I believe it is important that managers work together with the researchers, because this will allow for two things. Number one is that managers can point out the needs of the market, and the researchers can also point out the technical limitations. And by working together on this, actually, I believe it can generate a better quality research as well as faster results. And finally, fostering links between R&D and marketing to the commercial success of the new product will for sure increase the likelihood that the product will be successful. I think it is also important to create a better link between R&D and manufacturing in order for the new products to be as adapted and as easy to implement as possible in this process. I think it is also important to construct efficient scale manufacturing facilities and give marketing a larger budget. Why? Because by providing a more adaptive manufacturing process, then you can easily adapt to the quantities you manufacture. And in other words, you are creating more just-in-time manufacturing, which means that you have less stock, and if the product is a failure, you would have lost less money. And finally, to develop a future product campaign that will build market presence and brand loyalty quickly. In other words, it is very important that if you release a new product, that you establish a very strong marketing campaign so that the market understands that you were the first one to create this product, and therefore that product becomes a synonymous of your brand. But one of the main ways that companies still expand their businesses or create new diversification is still through acquisitions. This is still the principal way in which companies enter new industries to pursue either vertical integration or diversification, for example. And this is used for companies because it allows you to move much faster, establishing a presence in an industry. And you know, there's the saying, if you cannot fight them, join them. But in this case, it's more like rather than fight them, buy them, because it's much cheaper to buy the company rather than creating a whole new business and then try to compete against them. So these acquisitions are less risky than internal new ventures, and it's an easy way to enter an industry that is already protected for example, that it might be protected with high barriers of entry. But there's a couple of pitfalls here you have to be careful. Number one is integrating the acquired company into your already existing business model, and this can create a couple of problems because no two cultures will be absolutely compatible. Number two is a lot of times in acquisitions we overestimate the economic benefit, and actually these companies will not be as profitable as initially we thought. And also the expense of acquisitions, typically they tend to be more expensive than initially projected, and there's a variety of reasons for that. Speculation can be one of them, but as well, for example, the fact that a lot of times before being sold, companies might decide to, let's say, flourish their accounting books. And might also be inadequate pre-acquisition screening. In other words, the way you selected the business to be bought, maybe the way you selected it was wrong, and this is not the best business to buy. So in order to become successful in this, in acquisitions, my opinion is you need to target and identify the system to which will generate the leads for the acquisition. In other words, you need to improve the pre-acquisition screening and really spend your time to decide what is the best company to buy. Then you have to decide on the strategy, that how are you going to create the bidding. If you just go and try to make a negotiation from scratch and then say, okay, let's meet again next week, during that week a lot of speculation will happen, and actually the price of the company that is being sold will go up. Also think about how will you integrate that business into your already existing business, and try to understand what is the culture of the business that you're trying to acquire. And finally, try to learn from the experience that other businesses and similar industries in the local market have had. And here again, it comes the importance of research, or the importance of actually calling some of your competitors, or calling some of your colleagues and people in other industries that maybe know the area better, and asking them for advice. So joint ventures is another great way to start new businesses, like I mentioned. So this is when two or more companies agree to pool their resources and create a new business. This will allow the company to share the risks and the costs associated in establishing this business unit, but we might still have some problems. Namely, maybe the partner has superior skills. Maybe the partner with superior skills will have to give away more profits, for example, and it might be different business models or different time horizons might lead to conflict on how to run the joint venture. Okay, so if sometimes two people have problem agreeing just where to go for dinner, then imagine what it is, two big companies with hundreds of people trying to decide what direction a company should go. It can be extremely complicated. So another concept I want you to know is the concept of restructuring. And restructuring is when you have to reorganize or divest a business unit from an existing industry. So this means that you might have to refocus upon a company's core business and rebuild their distinctive competency. In other words, rework and reorganize the business in order to really refocus on what is the real competitive advantage of this business. So restructuring means that as well, that you might have, there's many reasons for restructuring. Okay, maybe the investors feel that the company no longer is a multi-business model and therefore needs to be broken down into different businesses. Maybe the complexity of the financial statements of these very diversified enterprises is disguising the performance of individual businesses, and therefore might be better to separate them. Or maybe it might be a response to declining financial performance brought by over diversification. In other words, because all the businesses are so different, actually the overall performance is going down, so by separating might be an easier way to bring back profitability up to regain a focus. And finally, diminished advantages of vertical integration, of diversification from innovations in strategic management, which means that basically the concepts that we were talking before really are not applying to this specific case. And in this case, it might be easier to just refocus on the core business that initially this business had. So to summarize, this was all the concepts I wanted to talk with you about. Indeed, it's a little bit of loose thoughts on this video, but it's things that I believe I did not cover in previous videos that I think it would be important. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.